Do you dream of adding your very own book to the collection of books that have already been written? Do you wonder where to start or how to finish? Does the idea of writing a book seem too overwhelming? Do you just want to polish up those writing skills or stay motivated? Do you wonder what to write about? Everything you need to help you write, stay motivated, and self-publish your own book is right here on one channel. And why? Well, because it's time to get over the writer's hump and just do it. You can write anything. Yep, you can write a book. I want to tell you today is going to be one of the most exciting episodes I've done yet for myself. And the reason for that is I have a dear friend of mine on today whose name happens to be Rae Baer. Some of you out there have already heard of Rae. Rae has done some editing for myself and also for one of the other authors that we had on the show in an earlier episode. Rae has been a wonderful friend to me. She's been a co-writer. She's been a co-conspirator. She's been all sorts of things in my life and absolutely one of my best and dearest friends. And she is also the author of a fairly new novel called Not a Romance Novel. And I want to give Rae an opportunity to talk to you, the audience today, about writing, about her books. And we're just going to have a fun conversation. So Rae, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Laura. It's fun to be with you too. This is quite a day. It's snowy and cold and just winter. So this is fun.
Yeah, we got, I don't know how many inches of snow out there. I'm looking out my window. I haven't gone anywhere. I don't want to go anywhere. It's snowy. The roads are icky. So I'm staying in. I'm drinking hot beverages. That's what I'm doing today. How about you?
About the same. About the
About the
same.
same. You don't want to drive in it?
Oh no, 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 no.
Well,
Well, if I had a snowmobile and all kinds of uh, warm clothes and all that fun stuff, but no,
then
no.
maybe, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to talk about all sorts of things that are related to writing. This channel is dedicated to people who maybe have a book idea and they're not sure what to do. They don't know, how do I go about self-publishing? How do I stay motivated to write? How do I, again, get my book published? How do I get my book edited? What if I'm no good at writing? How do I get better at writing? What are the steps that writers take? So we try to just have conversations with writers who have gone through all of this to keep the beginning writer or the beginner writer motivated and inspired to write. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your personal journey when it comes to publishing stuff. But before we do that, is it okay if I explain to people how you and I met and how book writing has sort of been the tie that binds us? Would that be okay?
Sure, sure. It's a fascinating story.
It is. It really is. Well, Rae and I were attending the same church at the time that my book, my new book, had just come out. It's called I Met Her in a Throne Room, or it was new then. It's not so new now, but that came out in 2020. Yeah, 2020, right at the start of the pandemic. And so I Met Her in the Throne Room came out, and a few people in my church got the book, and Rae was one of them. Up until that point, I don't think you and I had really known each other. Maybe had
Well,
we interacted at all?
a little bit, but that was like during the greeting time or something.
Yeah, I don't think we really knew each other. But Rae got my book, you got my book, and you messaged me and you said, hey, there's an error in your book. And it was a pretty significant error, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was. And so I thought to myself, it was significant in context and content. And it's something that most readers might not have picked up on if it was not something, I don't want to give the book away, if it wasn't something they were already very familiar with, but you picked up on it. And my thought was, oh, I have to meet this woman, because it was a dumb mistake on my part, but I was impressed with the fact that you caught that. So we started communicating, and after that, it was like, we've just been inseparable best friends, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's been good.
Yeah,
Things been a godsend.
I think so. I think so. But it was after that, I decided that if I ever wrote another book, you were the person that I wanted to have a second set of eyeballs look at it. And so I did. I wrote a couple more books, and well, a few more, and you edited those for me. You went through them, you looked for all of those mistakes, you looked for inconsistencies for me, and then some cool stuff started happening for you. You want to talk about that?
Uh, like when you went on the road and what happened there.
What
Are
about all
we?
the other books you've edited as a result
Oh,
of that, and your
uh,
writing, and
the
and all of
result
that's
of
fun stuff?
yeah.
Your journey.
Well, I actually got into writing by accident, but not really. That makes sense. Um, my mother had passed away. She was a writer, but she'd never gotten anything published. And one of our goals was going to be, was going to get her published. Well, she passed away, but I inherited her manuscripts and her notes and all of that fun stuff. And it took a while for me to start going through all of that. But I did, and I started pulling out things and putting things together and just sorting through her notes and came across an outline that she had started. And she passed away before she could develop it. So I inherited that, and that inheritance became a story, a children's books style story called Quackle's O'Shaughnessy McDuck. And it was hilarious. And you had helped me sort through some of the ideas and how to put it together. And we came up with this idea of actually having this duck visit my mother's hometown where I live right now. So we did that over the course of a summer, got that published. And in the meantime, I was working on a legacy book, which has items from my mother's notes, from my own personal writings, and my grandmother, who I also inherited her manuscripts. My grandmother was published, my mother was not. So I started putting together these ideas about the legacy that I have with writing. All three of us women loved words. We loved putting them together. Um, I did more inspirational writing than they did, and it just became it was a legacy. So it's an interesting process with that. That took a long time. And then while we were talking, you and I talking one night, while you were truck driving, you came up with the idea. You jokingly said, "You need to write a novel now."
I'm going to stop you for a minute, and it's unfair because I know all of your story because I was there in that journey. But
Uh-huh.
in the midst of all of that, you had helped a couple other people
I
edit
did.
their books so that they
I
could get
did.
them published before you even started on this next book you're going to talk about, right?
I did.
Yeah,
Um,
one of those was Julie Pennington and her book Traffic. We had her on the show a couple days ago.
yep.
I
That
think
was a
was that the first one that you edited
actually helped
besides
somebody else.
mine?
Um, I think she got hers published. I don't remember. Um, but yeah, Julie came up uh, as a reference from you, and we connected, and uh, that was a fun story.
Yeah.
It was a mystery, murder mystery, and it was fun to listen to her interview the other day that you did with her. But yeah, I think that only took about 6 months
Yeah,
because
I don't
she,
she was a
huh?
good writer. I don't think it took you too terribly long to
Yeah,
work on that. But and you also helped me and a couple other people along the way. So you
I,
weren't just writing your stuff. You weren't just writing Quackles and keeping your mother and your grandmother's legacy alive through their writings, but you were helping other people before you started on this thing that came up that you're going to talk about when I was trucking.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The other one was after the book that we're going to talk about. Um, Another friend of mine lives in about an hour away, so we were kind of commuting back and forth. Um, so I got to help her put a lot of her journals into a book form
Mhm.
uh, about her journey through chronic illness. So that's been good. That was meaningful. Um, but yeah, I've done a couple, just a couple.
Yeah, just you've done some stuff. You've done some stuff. So now let's talk about not a romance novel, how you came up with the idea for that
Okay.
and that journey.
Okay. Yeah, that was fun. As I started to say, after I put together the legacy book, uh, we were talking, and you said you need to write a novel. And I said, no. And you said, yeah, you need to write something fun and adventurous now. And I said, well, okay, but it's not going to be a romance
Well,
novel.
I think I had said yeah, you need to write a romance novel, and I said it
Oh yes,
jokingly
okay,
because that'd be the last thing you'd ever write, is what I thought. So I think
yeah,
that's what I said is, yeah, you need to write a romance novel. And you said, no, not a romance novel.
right, yeah, yeah. But we were laughing about it. We were coming up with characters. I was giving you ideas, and you were throwing things back at me, back and forth, and it was a it was a fun conversation. But I got to thinking about that, and by the next time we talked, I had an outline that I gave to you and developed the characters, and there it
But
went.
and I think you initially you did that sort of as a joke. You sent me, I don't, was it like the first few paragraphs or chapter or something? I don't know. It was supposed to be a joke, but it took off. It sort
It
of
did. It did.
took on a life of its own, and we both started having fun with that. I was looking forward to, one of the things I want to share with the audience is, when I was truck driving, I would get so sleepy and bored in the evenings, and Rae did such a wonderful job of keeping me awake. You stay up late anyway, and so she would let me call her, and we would talk about the book. You would tell me what the last chapter was you wrote and what the
Yeah.
characters were doing, and it kept me incredibly entertained.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would read you the chapters, laughing hysterically at some points. And
Yes, yeah, yeah.
but
And it
yeah,
just seemed so out of character, in my opinion. Like, I just never thought that would be something you would write, but it turned out incredible. So yeah, it was good.
yep, that never crossed my mind that I was going to write a novel, fiction, and uh, it was totally out of the box. Totally out of the box. A lot
So
of
how
people.
long, because I honestly don't remember how long, it didn't seem to take you long, but how long did it take you to write not a romance novel?
That was that was probably about 6 months, I'd say.
Was it that long? I thought it was
Well, maybe it
more
wasn't.
than
It
that.
it could have been shorter than that because it just came out. I mean, put it together and had all the characters developed and got the plot line, and I just went with it.
And
It just
you actually did some research for that book
did.
too.
I
You want to
did.
talk about that?
The book takes place um, in a community that I lived in, and so I was researching um, various locations that were still around because it's been a while since I'd lived in that community. And so there's a sense of realism that I dropped into the book. The characters are totally fictional, but some of the locations, and there was another city that I had lived in, Chicago. So I bounced back and forth between those two communities in my book. And it just kind of, to me, gave it a sense of realism to do that.
Yeah, you put a lot of your own personal life experiences into those that had nothing to do with the characters themselves, but just location, knowledge. Yeah, I would just say like your personal experiences you put
Right,
into that. Mhm.
right. And that,
So, if we're talking today to people who want to get started with writing, and maybe they hadn't considered becoming a writer, like I don't know, I don't know if you've and I've even talked about this, but I had never had this lifelong goal of publishing something, being a writer. And I don't know if that was one of your goals that you wanted to do, but some people do. They have this goal. They're like, oh, I want to publish a book so bad, and I don't know where to start. And those are probably the people I meet more frequently. But then there are these people who, like myself, that was never a life goal of mine. I just sort of fell into it. So, what would you say to somebody who is thinking about it, or maybe they're not? And what would you talk about in terms of the progression of writing? Like, what does it take to start, and what does that journey look like? I know what it looks like for me, and a little bit for you, but what do you think it could look like for somebody else?
Well, for me, I'm a very detail-oriented person. You know that.
Mhm.
So I started with the idea, and then I started putting out an outline. And I think you had the guest on the other day that talked about the framework of
Mhm.
writing. And because I have been involved with writing in some form or another since being a teenager, really, composition, uh, English essays, that kind of things. You start with an idea, then you have an introduction, then you have the body, and then you have the conclusion. So I do it in a very systematic, um, step by step. Uh, so if I were to encourage other people to write, I would just say, get the idea down on paper or on the computer, and
Uh,
then start thinking about, depending on how you're made up, how you're wired, thinking about how you want the story to progress. Are you writing a mystery? Are you writing a fiction? Are you writing um, a biography, or something like that? Something that can be a legacy book. What are you going to put into it? How are you going to uh, let it go from the first sentence to the final sentence? What's going to happen? That kind of thing. That's kind of how I do it. Uh,
so I think there is a progression to people's writing skills, abilities, and talents.
mhm.
I've not met too many people who write a home run first try, right out of the gate. I
Right.
think most people, um, they kind of start with this. I call it like the first pancake. It's there. I'm a little bit distracted. We have snowplows outside, and so
Oh,
I can hear them going by. I don't know if you can hear them or not, but yeah, they're going down the street. So I think that they start out with this, their what I call their first pancake. That's the norm for people, and then they
yeah.
learn from those. Do you? Not that your first book was bad, because I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. It was so adorable. It was, the first one I read was Quackles, and it was such a cute story, and it was a fun story. But certainly from that to not a romance novel, excuse me, I can see that your skills progressed. I know you're in the middle of writing another book,
Right.
and I think even that one is going to be even better than not a romance novel. So, what does that progression look like? Like, what did you learn along the way?
Oh, I've learned a lot. I thought I knew about writing because of, all the other stuff that I've had to do, the articles and newsletters and whatnot. But this is a whole different ball game. Um, I really had to put myself into my character's shoes. That's a hard thing to do. Uh, and I think people might have a hard time doing that if you're doing something with characters. Um, I had to get out of stating facts and actually trying to develop personalities. Um, so I think I do that pretty well. Um, yeah, I don't know how else to describe the progression. It was just I sat down, I did it. Um, I had notes to go along with because I was putting together two different kinds of books, from an inheritance. And then when I started with Not a Romance, I took the outline that my mother had made, um, developed the characters, or no, no, back up, back up. This wasn't my mother. Um, sorry. Um, but I just had the outline in my head, and put it down on paper and progressed from there. I went chapter by chapter. Some people just like to be able to put the whole thing down and then go back and sort through it. I'm not that way. Um, So sometimes it's paragraph by paragraph to get the thoughts from my head into the typewriter or the computer, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So I think part of my question was, what did you learn? Let me rephrase that. It's a
Yeah.
little bit different because I do know every step that you went through for this. What was the most challenging part of self-publishing for you?
Learning how to do the format, the publishing format. Um, I messed around with a lot of different margins, and I mean it's a process to get it all set up, to get it actually ready to upload, and the frustration of having to upload it and then it not fitting into the format. Then you have to go back into your manuscript and redo the margins or adjust or something, and then re-upload it. And, uh, that was a headache. That was a big headache. Um, but I have learned with every book that I've done so far, I learn a little bit more and I get a little bit better. And it's a process. I still make mistakes with it. Um, but we'll see how much easier this next book can be uploaded.
Yeah,
But
because you've learned that what some of the pitfalls can be, and
right,
now you're sort of you're a little bit more knowledgeable and you're
right, right.
pre-warned, I would say. I
Yeah,
don't know too many people who are able to get their books uploaded, especially we're talking about Amazon here because all of your books have been uploaded to Amazon. And I
right.
don't know too many people who get it uploaded the first time and it just sticks. It takes, everything's perfect. A lot of people have to go back in and mess around with some aspect of either the layout, or they find you get drafts, right? So
I'm sorry.
you order an author's draft
Oh,
first
yeah,
that comes,
yes,
and you go through that, and then you have to go back in and the whole process starts over again. You have to fix any
right.
mistakes or make changes you want to, and then upload it again. Right?
That was something else that I learned too. Uh, was that it just it's hard to describe, but um, to get it all together and get it uploaded, it was really a challenge. I know on the legacy book, it took me over a year to get it together, and then it felt like a year putting it up, trying to upload it because there was a lot of challenges because I had illustrations and I had cut and paste uh, things in the book. So it just it was weird. It was hard, but I enjoyed the process. I am learning a lot more, and we'll see how far it goes.
What's your favorite thing about writing?
Probably the process, getting the ideas to formulate instead of floating around in my head, uh, making them concrete and developing the characters. It, I think that's the best part that I like most.
Yeah. And what is your least favorite part about writing?
The least favorite um, has been probably the motivation. I know you've talked about motivation in a couple of your other interviews.
Yeah.
I have a hard time being motivated because I don't know. I let it stew. I let the story stew in my brain quite a bit while I'm trying to. If I'm doing research, I'll do a whole lot of research and then put it into the bulk of the story. But staying motivated is hard for me.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because from my perspective, I feel like you've gotten your books out there really fast. So I look at it, I'm like, boy, she stays motivated. I think you do.
Hmm.
I don't know. I guess maybe it depends on everybody's definition of motivation. So timelines. I don't know if you give yourself like these deadlines. I'm going to have it done by XYZ time, and then you have to find motivation to stick to that deadline. Or if you're more like, no, I'm just going to plod along and do it when I feel like it. What does that look like for you?
I think because I self-publish, I don't have deadlines. Um, I can put a deadline on, I want to get this chapter done by the end of this week. And I have done that. I did that with the not a romance book. Um, but because I don't have to have a deadline, I can pace myself a little bit better. And I have discovered that when I do put a deadline on my writing, I get stressed. And that's a surprising thing for me. It just stresses me out to try and make sure that I have so much done by such and such a time. So self-publishing, I can take my time. I can do it as fast as I want. I could go down as slow as I want. And I think I really like that aspect of self-publishing.
That's something that I appreciate too, is not being under the gun, when it comes to writing. I don't want somebody making demands of me, because for me, it's sometimes I do get that writer's block and I have to walk away from it and I have to think about it a little bit more. But there's the physicality of it too. Some people can just sit at their computer and just type all day long, and I can't. After a couple of hours, I have to get up, stretch my legs, and my back is sore from sitting at it all day. And so, yeah, it's not something that I want to be chained to. And I like what you said, that because you self-publish, you don't have all of that pressure, that you can just go at your own pace. That's one of the reasons why I am a real advocate of self-publishing. Now, I recognize that with that comes a lot of other responsibilities that people who maybe go through bigger publishing companies don't have. And that is that they are not responsible for all of the marketing of their book. Um, I don't necessarily write my books for the sole purpose of making a dollar, making the money. I write because I enjoy that. And I think you are very much like that as well. You just like the fact that you've done this. This is your piece of art. This is your expression. This is your book. And it isn't about, how much money can I make off of this? So you're not out there pushing that marketing and really putting all of those marketing demands on yourself that I see other people doing. Is
Right.
that pretty accurate?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I don't market. I'm not a business person. Um, so to try and become a person that markets all the time and, uses all the resources available, like you said, I'm not in it for the money. Um, but there's that joy of when you receive that first book, the author's copies. It's like, I did this. This is my
Yeah.
work. My
Yeah.
good. That's exciting. That's
That
exciting.
sense of accomplishment, that realization that a piece of you will live on for a very long time, forever, even
Right.
after we've departed this life, our writings will still be here. That's one of the things that keeps me motivated. I want my children and my grandchildren to have a piece of me left behind for them forever,
Right.
so that, I just, that's one of the things that I really appreciate about it. So I think I would do a terrible job of having to make a living out of writing. But there are people who do a wonderful job of that. I hope to have some more of those on my show. They do a wonderful job of actually making writing their career and making that a living for them. But I just do it for fun. I like the fun of it.
Yeah, I do too. Since I've gotten into it, it's enjoyable. It's like it's cathartic to be
I
able
think
to sit
so.
down and write. And um, I don't sit at the computer for hours and hours and hours, but I do get in the zone. And once I'm in the zone, uh, then I can go for a couple of hours, 2, 3 hours, and then look at the clock and realize, oh, I haven't eaten lunch.
Yeah, I've
Or
done that. I do that. That I do. I hear you, sister. And then you just get lost in it.
Yes,
I
yes,
get more lost in that. I'm more entertained by writing than I am a movie. I'm not a big movie person anyway, but I'm more entertained by my own writing, and I just get so into it. And I'm like you, then I look up and I realize I didn't eat lunch, or I didn't eat supper, or is it that late already? I'm supposed to be
yes,
in bed, those types of things. But yeah, it's a fun process, I think.
it is.
Yeah. And something else that I know about you is that you find joy and excitement in helping other people with their writing.
I do. I do. I enjoy that. I think probably more than actually sitting down and writing my own stuff, because there's a light bulb effect. When I see that they have put in the work and are willing to have me help them edit, um, and then when they get the book uploaded and published and they get their first copies, I enjoy that. That is just that lights my world. Um,
Yeah. You are a
because
natural teacher. You are um, just natural at it. You're a wonderful helper. You're wonderful at supporting other human beings on this planet. And I think I've seen you get joy out of it, not just in helping me, and which I greatly appreciate, but I've watched you help other people and the excitement you have. So the question I have for you is, when their books finally get published, do you feel a sense of a personal accomplishment in that? Do you feel, um, yes, we did it? Because it does become a we thing.
I do. It's great to be able to see the success of somebody else, and I know you feel the same way about helping people.
Yeah.
Um, I just enjoy doing that. It's uh, very fulfilling and very rewarding to have somebody else be successful and know that I was able to help them and spur them along to that success. And success is not selling a million copies. That,
No.
that just doesn't happen in the real world. I mean, yes, there are people that can do that, but when I help someone, it's because they have something to say and they want to be able to say it in such a way that other people can read it and glean and be encouraged and uplifted by what they have to say.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's very rewarding. I enjoy that very much.
So I think you said that you almost enjoy that more than your own writing, that you enjoy the helping side of things, like maybe the editing and helping people upload and publish more than you, not that you don't enjoy your writing, but I think the
Right.
other side of it seems more fulfilling to you from what I have observed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's very rewarding and I enjoy it. Now, there are some who do not like, well, I shouldn't say do not like, but who have a hard time with how I edit. And, if that's the case, then I'm probably not the right person for you to be having me look over your work because I will go into a lot of nitty-gritty details. And the people that have allowed me to do that, once they get published, it's just very exciting. And I'm amassing a great stack of books of the ones that I have been able to help. So
Yeah, yeah, you really
kind of
are. And
fun.
I
And I
think it almost seems like it's just a calling that you have, that people can come to you and say, how do I write this? Does this sound right? Where do I put my commas? And what about one of the things that I did not have confidence in when I was a new writer for a long time is conversational writing. Like I wasn't good at dialogue. And you gave me just like a couple little tips, and a lot of it was just watching what you did, and you edited some stuff, and I realized, oh, maybe I'm not as bad as I thought I was at that. You were really pretty good at encouraging me. And I think that you have a lot to teach people just about basic English skills. And there's a need for that. There are some people they're just not, they don't do a really good job of being able to formulate a sentence. And that's where you come along and you say, oh, that's not proper. You need to change that.
Yeah.
And you
Or
do a good
how
job
did
of it.
we switch this around to make it flow better?
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
let's move this paragraph up, or let's delete this section because you repeated it before. Yeah,
And having a second set of eyeballs, or a third or fourth or even a fifth sometimes, is, I think, for any writer, really very helpful. It can be scary to have somebody else look at your work, and you don't know. I think I talked about it with Tom Lucas when I interviewed him the other day. Is you don't know if somebody's going to criticize you or think less of you or make fun of you because you did something maybe incorrect or wrong. But if you can get past that and start taking people's critique, I think Tom used the word critique rather than criticism. If you can take
right,
that and really learn, you can develop your skills in a more positive direction,
right,
right? Yeah.
right.
And
I would
that's what
agree.
you have been for me and for so many other people, is that other set of eyeballs where you're not judging the person's story necessarily, but you're helping them see where some of their own personal shortcomings are and where they can grow and develop better skills.
Right, right. I would agree with that. And it's important. I mean, you could have word vomit
Yeah.
coming out on the page, but if you don't know how to structure um, sentences, if you don't know, for instance, where do you put a comma? Do you need a comma? Do you even would it be easier to have a semicolon? Should you end it as a sentence? That's that's one of the things that beginning writers, in my experience too, beginning writers have a challenge.
Yeah.
And so if I can come alongside them and just say, okay, you may say this as a, conversation, but if you're writing it, let's write it this way, kind of thing.
And
That makes
that is where I think there is this, that's what I'm talking about, that first pancake. The first time you write something, you're probably going to have all of those mistakes unless you're already a literary master. It's right. Some people are just better with their English skills than others, their writing skills. Some people aren't very natural at it, and they do just fine, and they don't necessarily need somebody like you to come along. But I've learned, because I've had somebody like you say, that's a little bit off. And um, that is that progression that I think every writer should, what's the word I'm trying to look for, obtain, that they need to learn from their mistakes. That's about the best way that I can sum it up.
yeah, yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And writing is different than speaking. You
Yeah.
can speak one way, and it'd be totally fine, totally acceptable. But then when you're trying to write, for instance, somebody that uses the word like every other word, um,
Mhm.
that's
I probably do that more than I should.
that's the way they speak, and that just reflects the culture, the speaking culture. But then when you sit down and try and write that, you would not want to see I like did this like yesterday, like yeah,
Or
yeah,
yeah.
and
Those filler words.
yep, it does not, unless you're using something like that in the context of what you're writing,
Part of the
uh,
dialogue or something.
part of the dialogue. It you know, you just need to do something different.
Yeah.
You need to be able to write differently than you speak.
And that's where somebody like you comes in. Well, I want to talk again about Not a Romance Novel. And I want to
Okay.
pull that up for our viewers so that they can see. This is, oh, and let's talk about the cover of your book for just a second. The
Oh, okay.
inspiration for this picture here was, you want to talk about that?
That is my niece. She was at the beach with a group of friends, and she was playing around with the camera, and she set it up and started walking toward the beach, and she just kind of did that little pose. And when I saw that, I thought that is a perfect uh, front or cover for the book.
Yeah.
And so I asked her for permission to use the uh, photograph, and she said, "Well, yes, by all means, do that." So
Yeah, so
that
it's really very personal, but I think most people looking at it would not realize that that was your niece. So it's pretty
right,
exciting. Yeah. I love the
and
cover.
she is pointing backwards and down, and that's where I thought, okay, after talking with you and a couple of other people, uh, you know, putting that title in that format makes it look like she's pointing down and saying, yeah, this is not a romance novel.
Yeah. And I love, I don't want to spoil everything in the book, but I love how you used that phrase throughout the book, not a romance novel. I think your main character says a few times, my life is not a romance novel, right?
Right,
And so you
right.
actually tied the title of the book and weaved it in throughout the entire story, which I thought was pretty clever, very
Yeah.
clever.
Uh, and one of the things that I just did not want to do was make it a um, uh, Hallmark movie kind of thing,
Yeah,
with
and
the
it's not one of those sappy, um, yeah, it you did a wonderful, wonderful job of coming up with a very unique story, a very
yeah, it
unique
is. It
story.
was it was fun. By the time you get into probably two-thirds of the way in, um, you might think that you know how it's going to end,
Ah, there's a twist, definitely a
but there
twist.
is a twist. There is a twist, and it's that twist that I was really looking forward to. Um, I couldn't wait to get to that point. And
Oh,
uh, whenever you and I talked about it, you kept saying, "Now wait, dial it back a little bit. You don't want to
yeah,
give it
don't
away
rush
too
it, don't rush it.
early."
You're giving it away. Yeah, I remember. I do. Hey, let's talk about one thing I do want to share here while we're on this page. So if you were to click on Rae Baer right here, this is the author. If you were to click on the author's name, you can see, whoops, well, you've been mentioned in a few books here, mine included,
Yep,
but there are,
yep,
what are some of the other books that, see if we can find some of your other books here. Here we go. So this
yep.
is Quackle's O'Shaughnessy McDuck,
Mhm.
and that was a fun book. I got
It
to
was,
help you a little bit with that, and I had such a blast. We had such a good time because
yep.
we actually took a stuffed duck around town, didn't we? And we
We did,
we
we
posed
did.
him for a few things for the book. And then
Uh,
my legacy of words. What? Oh man, what a labor of love that was for you when you wrote My Legacy of Words. It was, following your grandmother's writings and your mother's writings, and now you as a writer, and putting this all together. And I know it was such a challenge for you, but it was a way to preserve your family, really your family legacy.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. It was something that I felt that I had to do. You mentioned calling just a little bit ago. Um, my family history is kind of dying away because so many of the older members of the family are passing away, and we don't have a lot of our family history left, you know. So I just felt that as I was going through those manuscripts, I need to do this. It was more of a necessity than a I have a story I want to tell kind of thing, um, because I wanted to be able to leave something behind that reflected the um, the way that both my mother, my grandmother, and I used words. So that's why I titled it "Legacy of Words."
Yeah,
Um,
and what a beautiful, just a beautiful tribute, not just to them, but to your entire family.
yeah, and I just wanted to do that. And when you that's something that I've started looking at more closely is helping somebody do a legacy type book. um, to preserve their family history. It's more than a memoir, it's more than a biography. This is something that you can leave behind, that teaches your life lessons, teaches your beliefs, your value system, things that were important to you, that you want your family to remember. So I've
Right.
kind of thought, if I can help somebody else write a legacy book, that would be really cool. And I've done that with
Yes.
a couple people already.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you have. And that's such a beautiful thing. Taking your experience and getting to help somebody else with that. Really awesome.
yeah, thank you.
If you were going to give advice, just one piece of advice to a brand new writer, somebody who's just beginning, who's a beginning author, they're just getting started with publishing, self-publishing, what would your piece of advice be to them?
I think as far as the writing part goes, just sit down and do it. Just put something down. Get an idea. If you have an idea floating around, grab it and put it down. Put it on the computer screen. Put it on a piece of paper and live with it for a while. And then just start, putting things down that might make a good story, or, however you want to do it. But just do it. Just do it.
What
Um,
what about the people who say, I don't know how to self-publish. I don't know how um, to get my book on Amazon or how to find somebody to edit it. What would you tell them? Because there is a process involved in all of that. What would you tell
there's
them?
a
What
process.
worked for you?
What works for me, this is how I would help, how I have helped. We get the idea, we get the story, we get the book all edited and polished and ready to go. And I talk with them, or I help them look at the format, because Amazon has a specific format for different kinds of books. Um, try and get it uploaded. But do your research. I mean, I'm a research person. I try to learn everything I can. I know you do a lot of YouTube videos. I read and uh, just do the research. How to put your manuscript into the format. How to create your cover. Now you mentioned my cover. I don't have a specific artist like your other guests have had. Um, I might do that for the next one, or maybe the next one after that. Um, but I haven't done that. But learn how to create a cover. If you really want to, you can research how to get somebody else to do that. Um, just do your research, basically. Um, when
I
you get it
think
in,
I think that we live in a day and age where there are no more excuses. Like we don't get to say, "Oh, I don't know how," because that
right?
information is anywhere. You can Google it. You can Google
Yeah,
it. You can certainly watch YouTube videos that will tell you how to. There's I like to say that I've graduated from the University of YouTube, but I don't think you ever graduate because there's new information out there
right.
all the
Oh,
time. I was just watching some learning videos this morning on a subject that was interesting me. So there's just no excuse, I think. The only thing that stops somebody from really pursuing this process is just fear. And
right,
I know that you've run into this situation personally, but I have found that there are people who say to me, Laura, how do I do it? And what they're really saying is, will you do it for me? And I'm not going to do it for somebody, but I can
right,
point you in the right direction and I will certainly help you any way that I can, but I cannot do it for you. You have to, there's a process that has to be done, and you'll benefit from learning from that if you
right,
just take
right,
the time to do it.
right.
It's not
Uh,
easy. Some of it is a real pain in the neck. Technology doesn't always work the way we want, and it can be tedious. And some people love that part of it. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes that love technology, but um, but it's rewarding, and you have more control over the outcome when you learn to do some of this yourself.
right. And when so many people have so many voices that drown out their voice, this is a way that they can get their voice going or
Hmm.
heard, you know.
Oh, and I am all about that. I love the idea of giving people a voice. I love that, and giving somebody a platform to be heard. I think that is amazing. And writing is one of those ways that they can do that for
Right.
themselves.
Yeah.
Oh,
And the fear, um, to me, it's not an issue. Uh, but I know that people are afraid because once the thought leaves your head, it's out there,
right.
and people can destroy it or they can encourage.
Hmm.
Um, and if the people that are listening to the thoughts that you've written down, listening with their mind's ear, and they want to destroy it, then those are the kind of people you don't want in your life. You don't
Correct.
want destroying everything that you are trying to say.
Right.
And a lot of people have that fear and try to alleviate that fear by just saying, do it, do
Yeah,
it. Just
and nobody needs permission.
that's
Nobody
right.
needs to be given permission to self-publish.
That's right.
You can write
That's
your
right.
book and get it out there. Yeah, just do it. So I love
Yeah.
that. Love it.
And that's what's so great now about being able to self-publish, especially on Amazon, uh, because it's your work. You don't have somebody taking a red marker and marking up all kinds of things. Um, it's your work.
You're not being
And
graded.
right, you're not being graded. You don't have to have permission to write a fiction novel. You don't have to have permission to write a sci-fi novel. You know, it's your work and it's still your voice.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. It's been a little bit different for me because I know your whole story. And I'm so excited that you were here. And I hope we get to do this again sometime. But I just want to leave everybody with these parting thoughts. And that is that, well, look, before I leave with any parting thoughts, was there anything else that you wanted to add to this conversation before we go?
No, I think I've said everything that's on my mind.
Well, I just want to remind people, we'll share this up on the screen one more time, where they can go. This is, of course, my Legacy of Words, but your other books, let's share those as well. Your other books, Not a Romance Novel, is the latest one. Real quick before we go, do you have a title for the book that you are working on now? And when do you think, I know you don't like to put deadlines on anything, but when do you think that one will be done?
The book I have in process now is called Turnaround.
Turn around.
And I am about halfway through. So I think maybe by the end of February, possibly.
Oh, that soon. Okay. All
It
right.
may take a
I
little
know
longer.
this one that you're writing has required a tremendous amount of research. Do you want to share anything about it or do you not want to spoil it? Maybe we can talk about it another time.
Sure, I can share a little bit.
Okay.
Um, it's set in it's set in New York City, and it's a very specific date, and a very specific event that takes place. And then the main characters, I have eight, nine characters, something like that, who after this event are going back to the hotel, and they end up getting stuck in the elevator. And during the course of the time that they're in the elevator, they begin to share their stories. Why were they coming to this event? Um, what do they think might happen after the event in their lives, kind of thing. Um, but it is requiring a lot of research because I want to make sure that the historical part of this is accurate and that I'm not doing a disservice by quoting or relating historical events. Um, so we'll see how it ends. I'm not quite well. I know how it ends, but the getting there is where I'm at right now. Is in the middle of that.
Well, I am particularly excited about this particular book because this was another one when I was still on the road trucking that I said, you should write. And you did. You started writing it. I think we were having a conversation about writing, and just kind of made a commitment to writing things that we felt were important. And
Right.
you just picked up the ball and ran with this. It was, another one of those, well, what should I write about? And we bounced ideas off of each other, and then you just took off with it. And it's been interesting. I know you took a little bit of a break with the holidays and things like that, but I'm anxious for this one to be done, because and I don't want to spoil, I'm not going to spoil the book, but I think that it is such an important book. This is not just an ordinary novel. I mean, it's a beautiful novel. I've been privy to each chapter as developed them, and I know what the outcome of the story is, but it is so important for people to read in today's world, period.
Right.
And I want to leave our audience with that, because I don't want to ruin the book, and I don't want anybody to have any preconceived ideas about it before they've even given it an opportunity, but
Right.
it was like we were discussing it, and then you started running with it. And to me, it's one of those goosebumpy, you always say goosebumpy moments. And
Right.
that's exactly what I think this book is. It's not a romance novel, was done for fun. It was just a
Right.
blast.
Right.
And Legacy of Words, that was done with a direct purpose, and that was your legacy. That was to carry that on. I think Quackles was just to honor your mother. But this book, I'm not saying the other ones didn't have purpose. They most certainly did. But this particular book, I feel like, is so deep in meaning, and so it just transcends everything else that you have done. And it's going to be amazing. And there are going to be people who will read this and pass this on to others to read, because of how important it is. I really
Right.
believe that. So it's
And
exciting. I can't wait till it's done. When it's
yeah,
done, we're definitely going to have you back on, and we'll do something to kind of
okay.
showcase that.
Part
Yeah.
of that. You did say something about how this came about, how I started with this book. Uh, it was interesting that at the same time that, or we were talking about it, at the same time, we both kind of came up with the date and the location
Oh yeah.
and the
Yeah.
person.
It was so weird. It was like, well, I think if I remember right, you said something like, well, what would the setting be? And I said, I don't know, do something that with a time period. And we said, well, what time period? I said, I don't know, pick can I give this away? It takes place in
Yeah,
the 50s, in the 1950s. Am
yeah.
I correct?
And then
So, and so we both just threw a date out there. We just threw a date out there and came up with this fictional idea. But lo and behold, when you research that date, our idea was not fictional at all. This actually happened on the date that we had thrown out there. And that
yeah,
was that goosebumpy moment. It was like,
yeah,
this has to be written. You absolutely have to write this book.
yeah. So there's a recurring word or phrase that goes
Mm-hmm.
throughout the entire book, and
Yes. Yeah.
it's reflective of the title, and that's probably about all I should say.
Mm-hmm. And I just don't want to give it away. I really
Yeah,
don't, because
yeah,
oh man, it is just bone chilling. And in a good way. It's just so
yeah,
exciting.
yeah,
So very, very exciting. There's more. This book is not just some author out there. I want to say this to the audience directly. This book is not just an author out there trying to write another book.
right,
There was I'm going to say, like, this God-given inspiration to this book, and that is
right.
just so necessary and it's going to be so worth reading. So I'm excited for you to get it done. But in the
Yeah,
meantime, go check out Rae's other books that she has. I personally like Not a Romance Novel the best. I think it's a great book. It's a wonderful novel. It's fun. It has some funny parts to it. It has some serious parts. Yeah, it's a good book. It's a really good book. And if you're not into sappy stuff, don't worry. It's not sappy. So it's good.
not happy at all.
I don't read romance novels, and I definitely read this one. So yeah, check that one out. But that's it. I think that we've covered quite a bit today. I was so
Yeah,
glad that you were here. Thank you.
it was good to be here. It was fun. It was fun.
I didn't give you a chance to leave us with some parting wisdom. Now's your chance.
Um, well, I don't know if it's wisdom, but I would like to share my favorite scene out of not a romance novel.
Yes.
My favorite scene is the chapter where the main character goes on a ski trip and all she doesn't know how to ski, and so she's trying to she's going with a gentleman friend. Let's put it that way. And he says, "Oh, don't worry. They've got ski instructors that give you introductory lessons." And she said, "Oh, okay, okay, okay." So, but she goes, and then the mayhem that happens during this ski lesson had me rolling on the floor as I was trying to create it. And I think that's my favorite scene of the whole book is the ski scene.
Yeah.
So,
And it is funny. It is really funny. So, all right. Well, definitely go check that book out. Rae, thank you for being here today. I certainly appreciate it.
thank you, Laura.
If you are a new author, if you are somebody who is thinking about writing, if you're not sure where to start, if you don't know what to do, here's what I tell everybody. Just do it. You can write a book. Yes,
Yep.
you can write a book. Rae, thank you for being here today. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us. God bless.